Welcome to a Motor Week mini special. Coming up in the programme, I get a chance to drive the new Mini, but first I reacquainted myself with the act it has to follow. It had been many years since I'd been to Brideshead. Yet as I drove up the gravel driveway, it could have been less than a week since I saw Julia and Sebastian. Ah, yes, Sebastian, and his dear little car. Well, okay, it may not be quite that old, but nearly everybody has at least one fond memory of the Mini. Recently we mourned its passing from the Long Bridge production lines, but with the new Mini looming large on the horizon, we thought it time to take a fond look at this iconic little car. The styling was a classic case of form following function. The wheels at each corner dictated a stubby appearance, the grille and headlamps framing the Mini's face, whilst the height of the bonnet was largely dictated by the engine sitting over the top of the transverse gearbox. Side on, the nose looks short, with the cabin taking up most of the silhouette in the pursuit of maximum interior space. The boot is tiny, but hinges at the bottom. Originally, the number plate hinged down as well when the boot was lowered, thus you could load cases on top of the flattened boot lid. The new Mini has a hatchback. It may not be as charming a solution, but can you imagine how the crash test would look if we adopted the old design in our modern, more safety-conscious society? It is very cramped in here compared with more modern offerings, but back in the 1950s, this was a packaging revolution. There's even less room in the back in later models like this one, thanks to these thicker seats that are made to accommodate today's more fussy drivers, not something that manufacturers were too fussed about in 1959. One thing the new Mini will find it hard to match is the incredible steering feel of the original model. Even the legendary hot hatches of the 80s, the Peugeot 205 GTI and such, can't give you the same feedback through the wheel. There's still that legendary whine from the gearbox that you associate with the Mini. It kind of harks back to an older age of motoring, and it really has become part of the Mini's very own character. Another challenge for the new car is going to be matching the original Mini's amazing handling. Eventually the nose will push wide. When you're really pushing it, there is a tiny bit of understeer. But other than that, you really can pile into corners at a very big rate to knots in a small car. The 4-speed gearbox was deemed to hold the Mini back in the 1980s, as new rivals boasted 5 speeds. That said, the old A-series engine fills the apparent gap in the cogs with a healthy dose of torque. Even today, the MPG figures are still competitive. Even if the performance figures are not. To be honest, it seems pitifully slow. The best it can hope to do is just about keep up with modern traffic. It's hard to believe that this was once the hottest pocket rocket on the King's Road. So what BMW have to do with the new Mini is recreate some of that essential charm that made the old one so special that people were prepared to overlook its obvious shortfalls in terms of space and sophistication. And if they can do that, then they could well have a real phenomenon on their hands. Mark Harrison of BMW is part of the team who'll be marketing the new Mini. Mike Cooper, son of F1 legend John Cooper, tells the Cooper story. Well, who made the decision to create a new Mini and why?
The idea to create a new Mini began just after BMW took over the Rover company, and the previous chairman of BMW was actually related to the original designer of the very first Mini, Alec Isigonis. So it was within his blood really, and when they went into the Rover company and saw that the classic Mini, if you like, was slightly declining in its qualities and in its sales figures, he took the decision to really go big on the new Mini.
Are we going to see Minis in competition? Will there be a single make championship, do you think?
Couldn't say exactly at the moment, but I'd be incredibly surprised if we don't see some Minis racing around Silverstone at some point.
In the late 40s, my father met Alec Isigonis. He became good friends with Alec, having raced at Brighton Speed Trials, and obviously knew Alec Isigonis through the Morris 1000 project. The Mini Cooper came about really because at the time, 1959 and 60, Cooper Formula One cars, of course, had won the World Championship. My father knew of the new Mini before launch, and obviously he tried one out with his drivers, Jack Brabham, Bruce McLaren. They drove the car, and they all came to the opinion that this little car could handle well, and it would make a perfect rally car. So he went to then George Harriman, the head of BMC, and put forward a project to turn the little Mini district nurse's car into a world rally beater. Alec was very proud that his car was to remain the car for the district nurse. He was very proud that it was a people's car, but he soon changed his mind when he realised the potential that the Cooper could give the Mini.
Later in the programme, we meet more of the faces behind the new Mini. But before that, we take a look at the last days of the old car with Ken Gibson.
Excuse my rather sombre dress, but I've come to pay my last respects to a very famous friend. I've come to Longbridge, home of the Mini for the last 41 years, to go and see the very, very last Mini roll off the production lines. It was a little car that was started as an answer to the fuel crisis, but the car that revolutionised motoring and went on to become the car of the century.
The easiest way to win a bet of this sort is to make a car that is so unusual compared with all the other cars around it that it automatically becomes a status symbol.
What few people know or remember is the Mini wasn't actually called the Mini when it was first launched in '59. It had two names, the Austin 7 and the Morris Mini Minor. Another piece of Mini folklore is the fact that it was designed by Sir Alec Isigonis on the back of a paper cloth napkin and a cigarette packet. To find out about the special magic of the Mini, we've come to Longbridge, home of the great little car for the last 41 years. And of course, who better to tell us why it's been such a special car than the workers who've been putting it together all over that time. And I've got somebody here who is perfectly equipped to give the story, because Alan Loach actually started in 1959 when the car was actually launched. Alan, what were you doing when you first started here?
I was a tea boy making tea and running and fetching various bits and pieces from the stores for the various people who were working here.
And tell me, can you remember what the salary was you got back then?
£2, 12 shillings and sixpence a week.
Mike Hewitt, what do you have as your memories of the Mini?
Well, I think it's a great little car, but it's a bit of a pig to work on. I mean, we've all still got the scars to prove that point.
How do you think it's going to be on, when the Mini is gone? How will you feel?
Oh, well, it'll be a tragic day for Longbridge and Birmingham. We've all been brought up with it for 20 odd years. Great family car, and I think every household or somebody in the household has owned a Mini during their lifetime.
Well, when I was younger, I had one myself, and it was probably one of the best little cars I've ever had in my lifetime. and it's been an enduring model. Obviously, it's lasted over 40 years, and it's a special little car.
So Jeff, here we have the very last Mini, number 5387-862.
Yes.
How do you feel about it?
Well, like most people associated with the Mini here, we feel sad, but also extremely proud of the fact that we produced this car, this British motoring legend, for the last 41 years at Longbridge. And all I can say to anybody who wants to emulate what we've done, we're a hard act to follow.
I have to say, it's absolutely years since I've been in a Mini. And the first thing that hits you is just how tight it is in here for space. I don't know who they thought the 4 adults were that would get in here, but we definitely must be growing now because it is seriously cramped in here. I'm in the performance one, and, well, to be frank, on a motorway, the performance is distinctly average. But there again, the Mini was not made for motorways. It was made for having absolutely hoots of fun driving on twisty English roads. Well, that could be my last drive of this amazing little car. It was called the classless car. In the swinging 60s, it was the car for celebrities to have. Everyone from the Beatles to Twiggy, Paul Newman, Clint Eastwood, Steve McQueen, they were all at the wheel of one of these. I don't know what the real secret of its success has been. My own view was that it was great fun and it was really affordable, something that the owners of the new Mini should take into account when they price it. But I think the biggest thing of all is it just puts a smile on your face. And I'll tell you something, we'll never ever see the likes of this car again or the success that it's enjoyed. And because of that, I'm going to go and have just one more last drive. Bye.
Well, the old Mini sadly had to end somewhere, but now we've got the new Mini and have managed to track down the designer, Franco Stephenson. I said that with an Italian twang. How are you, Franco?
Very well, thank you very
now,
much.
the new Mini, has it been very well received so far?
It has been. I mean, we have the experience from a couple of weeks ago in Paris, and it's just repeated itself today. It's been very emotional and a very big day for all of us.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Was it a little more special coming along to England because, you know, it's a firm British favourite, so was you quite excited about today?
Yeah, by all means. I was bit hesitant, not hesitant, but thinking about what the reaction is going to be because, of course, you know, the icon status of the Mini here is pretty big. So it's just it's been really positive. The reaction has been good and positive. So we're doing pretty well.
Super. Now you've completely redesigned it. You started off with lengthening the wheelbase, is that right?
That's it.
And I mean, just run us through a few of the things that's been redesigned. For instance, we've got a double sunroof. That's an interesting feature.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, today's customer, they want more. So obviously the car has to become safer, and at the same time it has to become more comfortable. I mean, the Mini itself was just a sheer joy to drive, but after a couple hours you'd be a bit, you know, go visit the dentist sometimes.
Yeah.
But we've kept obvious details of the old Mini or the original Mini, which make it very unique in the market. So as you can see on the interior, we have the central mounted instrumentation. We have the very light looking interior space right around where the console is here. All these features, the doors, I mean, these are things that only belong on a Mini, so you would never see something like this on another car unless it was a copy of the original Mini.
After the break, I'll finally get to drive the new Mini. Welcome back. My first drive in the new Mini fast approaches, but first we meet more of the people behind the new star. Now there are obvious marketing links with the history of the previous Mini.
Mini is a unique car. It's an icon, really. Having been available in effectively its original state for 41 years, most other cars had 5, 6 or 7 generations in that time. So to introduce a new Mini, a properly engineered new Mini model, it needed to have something which linked it to the Minis of the past. And in that case, the styling cues, although it's a totally different car in every respect to the Mini we all know and love, the styling cues are what gives it that link to the past. So not only do we have a shape, but we also have a Mini, one in this case, and also a Mini Cooper.
The new Mini we viewed some years ago, and the input that we had really was on the drivability. The design, Frank Steffenson's design, was exactly how we wanted it. We really wanted to ensure that the car, the drivability and the driver appeal was brought to the very forefront, as it was on the original Mini. The steering, the handling, the throttle response, and all these characteristics we've carried over to the new car.
The driving experience of the Mini is absolutely central. The old car always was praised for its go-kart-like abilities, if you like, its ability to stick to the road, to respond to its steering immediately. And we have aimed to retain all that character, but with the added benefits of modern suspension systems that give a much better ride, obviously such things as greater safety, an engine which is better suited to the emissions demands which are being placed on us. So the whole feeling is still of a small car, and it is still a very small car, of a small car with all that city responsive type of reaction, but to deliver, if you like, big car feeling, big car quality standards, big car ride to a car in that category.
Slight problem here. You see, the thing is, we had everything set up to film the new Mini. And then we saw the size of the thing. It ain't so mini after all, it's too big, it won't fit. Over 40 years went by between Alec Isigonis penning the design for the original Mini on a paper napkin and somebody at modern-day BMW saying, hold on guys, I got a great idea. So here we are in a square in Italy. It's a piazza, Richard, it's a piazza. Oh good, Italian job jokes. All we need to do now is drive the thing. You're driving, you're not sitting in the back, and you're not having a bloody migraine. Right. The bonnet humps, the four-wheel square stance of the thing, the way there's nothing adorning the sides, it's smooth and clear, are all cues that remind us of the original 60s Mini. I feel like twigging. I often do that. Okay, so this Mini can trace its ancestry back to the old one in much the same way that all Americans trace theirs to Bonnie Prince Charlie or Her Majesty the Queen. But it looks right. It looks like a Mini is a fantastic modern interpretation of an old design. It's incredible, really, that we used to go out in Minis as our first cars. I mean, by today's standards, the things are death traps. You may as well drive a damp paper cup into a 40-ton Arctic and expect to walk away. So for the new one, obviously things are a heck of a lot better. Not just the structure of the thing being more sturdy, but we've got airbags everywhere as well and brakes that work. So you do stand a chance of walking away from a collision with a hedgehog at least. Yeah. The interior is superb. Nowhere this side of an Audi TT do you get this kind of attention to detail. Everywhere, nothing is wasted. Huge dinner plate sized almost speedo in the middle harks back to the old car. A nice touch on this, the Cooper one, is mounted on the steering column. We have the rev counter. And everywhere, the steering wheel, it houses an airbag, but it still looks great. And down here, this row of toggle switches to operate the fog lights and the window look fantastic. Overall, it might look a bit nary for some tastes, but one thing, it feels very, very well put together. The old Mini certainly didn't over-cater in the boot department, and the story is similar here. It's not exactly massive, but access is a million times better thanks to this proper hatch. And these folding seats, very useful. And there are loads of other big differences too, like I don't remember there being frameless windows on the original Mini, and you couldn't impress your friends just by opening the bonnet. Look at that! Et voila. Good news here too, because this engine, not made in the 1950s, modern BMW 1.6 litre. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, but it does get the job done. I only told you, I'm warning you, to blow the bloody doors off. Right, that's it. Forget it. You're just a weak gag. Not even funny. Just drive the thing. Thank you. Oh, yep, This is definitely a Mini. Same old ride. No, that's not true at all. It doesn't do that in the slightest. But it does feel like a Mini. You're kind of aware that it's been manufactured in. It turns in quickly like a Mini, and you can feel that 4 square stance. It still feels nippy and quick and exciting. It's a lot of fun to drive. So, what do you get for your 10.5 grand? Well, it's got all the build quality of a BMW. It is a BMW, and it looks fantastic. All right, so it's a bit cramped in the boot for your shopping. Put it on the back seat. I mean, look at this thing. It may not tempt Fiesta buyers away any more than you'd tempt them out of Marks and Spencer's with the offer of a pink zoot suit. But BMW reckon of the 100,000 or so they're going to make next year, they should sell 20,000 in the UK. And me, I agree with them. You can keep your little toy cars, your MX-5s and MGFs. I'd have one of these every time. It's almost back to normal on Motor Week next week with a Barcelona special.